August 26, 2020 Planning Commission meeting, calling the meeting to order. And the next agenda item is Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Chair Alcorn, would you lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Appreciate it. And next agenda item is a roll call, and with the commission secretary, poll the commissioners.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. I'll now take attendance. Commissioner Ablaza. I understand he's supposed to be logging in shortly. I called him. Commissioner Albana.
Here.
Vice Chair Alcorn.
Here.
Commissioner Belong.
Present.
Commissioner Chua.
Here.
Commissioner Chuan.
Here.
Chair Tao.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Appreciate it. And the next agenda item is conflict of interest declaration. And just for the record, Commissioner Plaza is with us. And with the city attorney poll the commissioners on the conflict.
Yes, Chair. I ask whether any of the commissioners have a conflict of interest on any of the items before you tonight.
No.
No.
Okay. Let the record reflect that no to that question.
Thank you, Mr. Los Angeles. And the next agenda item is approval of the agenda. So commissioners, any changes? Seeing none. And staff, any changes to tonight's agenda?
No changes tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director. And can I have a motion, please?
I have a motion to approve the agenda.
And do I have a second?
I second.
Commissioner Albana, a second. So a motion from Commissioner Chuan and a second from Commissioner Albana. I'll go ahead to poll out the commissioners individually. So Vice Chair Alcorn.
Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan.
Aye.
Commissioner Plaza.
Aye.
Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
And the chair's aye as well. So motion passed 7 ayes. Thank you very much. And next agenda item is announcements. Commissioners, any announcements?
None.
Okay.
I have an announcement.
Please. Chair.
I just wanted to state for the record that myself and the chair had a meeting with planning staff regarding the items on tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Just to clarify, that's a virtual meeting. Thank you.
Virtual meeting.
Thank you. And any other announcements from commissioners? Okay. And staff, any announcements?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have 3 quick announcements. So yesterday, we were very happy to be able to send to you copies of the draft general plan. We've waited a long time to be able to say those words, and we're very excited for you to have that in your hands. The document is now available on the city's website for public review, and it also has been sent to the council and to the General Plan Advisory Committee. So the draft plan is circulated for, it will be in circulation for several weeks, maybe even a couple of months for review and comment. We do have a GPAC meeting, so the General Plan Advisory Committee will meet on Thursday, the 10th of September at 5:30 p.m. to have a preview of the draft plan with the with staff and with the consultants. And then, as you all know, there will be a joint meeting of the City Council and the Planning Commission at the end of September on the 29th at 6:30 p.m. in a special joint study session. Also, you'll also receive a preview of the general plan, the draft general plan. We're happy to share that with you. In the meantime, as you're looking at, it's a very long document. As you're looking it over, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to call me or planning manager Jessica Garner, who's been the project manager for the general plan these many years. And I know she's very happy to see that project coming to fruition as well. I will note that the general plan will be accompanied by an environmental impact report. The EIR is still still in progress being written. We're on track to have that finished by the end of September, and then it will be released for a 45-day review period. So the review of the draft general plan itself will actually go all the way through that same 45-day review period. But because it is a major document, it was finished, we decided to release it now, so everyone will have plenty of time to kick the tires, not the planners, and give us any of your comments that you might have on the document. We're excited to release that. Also, our next Planning Commission meeting on September 9th will be a special meeting. We don't have any development projects for you to review, and so we thought we'd take the opportunity to review the City Commission's handbook and also specifically the Planning Commission bylaws with you. And we've been through all of it with you, I think individually or with one or two of you as you've come onto the Planning Commission, but the suggestion was made, and it's just a good practice on a regular basis to review those documents, and we'll discuss them and answer any questions, and then if there are recommendations, we'll entertain those as well, and we'll move forward there. And then the last thing, last week and also today, you may have received an email last week from Liz and today from Jessica regarding some training tomorrow on the Brown Act. If you're available, it's tomorrow at 10 a.m. And I believe our colleagues from BBK, the city's contract law firm, will be providing training on the Brown Act. And we invite you all to participate in that as well if you're available. Martin, do you know, will that be recorded and then made available to be, I forgot to ask. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it seems like that's something we probably record. Maybe city manager's office may know as well.
I'm pretty sure it would be recorded because it has been agendized as a special meeting, but I can verify that with Chris or the CM's office as well. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll check with Rochelle. I'll confirm. Yeah. I imagine it will be recorded, and then we can, if you're unable to participate tomorrow, I know if you have work, we can make that available to you. Those are all the announcements that I have for tonight, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chuang?
This is a quick question on the Brown Act. Is that a annual requirement training? Just wanted to understand that. Maybe that's a question to City Attorney.
Yeah, I think it depends on obviously when the commissioners were appointed and when they started, but that's generally a requirement that has to be met.
On an annual basis, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So question for staff with regards to the presence and so noted. So by the virtue of being present on the screen or signed in, you are automatically noted for fulfilling the obligation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Director. We appreciate your announcements. And the next agenda item is public forum. Those interested and may address the Planning Commission in writing on any subject not on tonight's agenda. Commenters may type their name and city of residence for the record, and remarks read aloud will be limited to 3 minutes or less. Comments submitted via online form will be read aloud by the Secretary as an item not listed on the agenda. No response is required from the city staff or the Planning Commission, and no action can be taken. Planning Commission may instruct staff to place the item on a future meeting agenda. Commission Secretary, any public comments?
Yes, I just received a comment. I have a comment here from Jim Acosta. His comment is, I am still waiting for an apology from Evelyn Chua. I have another comment here from Miss Barbara Navarro, 915 North Hillview Drive. She says, I just wanted to thank the planning manager for distributing the draft general plan. Many of the residents that I know received it. And that's all I have right now, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Medina. We appreciate it. And going on to the next agenda item is approval of minutes. And so we have 2 minutes for this evening's approval. One is June 10th, 2020, and the other one is June 24th, 2020 meeting agenda. And so I'll go ahead. The June 10th is the special meeting minutes. And so do I have a motion on or any changes to the June 10th, 2020 meeting minutes? If none, can I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 10th.
Second.
Okay, and we have a motion by Commissioner Chuan and a second by Vice Chair, and I'll poll commissioners individually. So Commissioner Vice Chair Alcorn,
Aye.
Commissioner Chua,
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan,
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza,
Aye.
Commissioner Belong,
Aye.
Commissioner Albana,
Aye.
Chair's aye as well. Motion passed, 7 ayes. And I'll move on to the June 24th, 2020 meeting.
Chair,
Yes.
sorry to interrupt, but I just want to note that it'll be 6 ayes and 1 abstain because Commissioner Blaza wasn't present last week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Just for the record. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And so now moving on to the June 24th, 2020 meeting minutes. Any changes, commissioners? Staff, any changes?
Yes, Chair, there are a few changes that I'll be making. One on page 3 on the second line, the assistant patron, please. I'm going to strike out assistant. On page 3, 10th line, there's a grammatical error, a repeat of on the. Also on page 3, third billet, there's discussion with the crew member will move the vehicle with waiting order, not use drive-through, to wait for order delivery, so not to plug up the main drive-through aisle. And I will make those corrections if you'd like to approve them as amended.
Thank you, Ms. Medina. We appreciate it. So commissioners, can I have a motion, please, with the amended wording? Can I have a motion?
Go ahead, Mr. Alcorn.
Motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and so I have a motion from Vice Chair and a second from Commissioner Chuan. So I'll go ahead and poll the commissioners. I'll go ahead and reverse the order this time. Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Aye, okay. Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan.
Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Vice Chair Alcorn.
Aye.
Chair, aye as well. Motion passes, 7 ayes. Thank you very much. And
Thank you.
moving on to the next agenda item. This is the public hearing item. We have 2 public hearing items this evening. One's a time extension for 355 Sango Court. And the second public hearing item this evening is a variance, fence variance for 830 London Drive. And staff, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just by way of introduction, as you mentioned, our first public hearing item tonight is a time extension for the multifamily apartment building that's located at 355 Sango Court. This is down in the transit area specific plan area, just south of the, it's actually located south of the transit station. And we have our associate planner, Lillian Van Hoa, here to present the staff report.
Thank you, Director Thomas. My name is Lillian Van Hoa, Associate Planner with the City of Milpitas. As mentioned, the item before you tonight is a request for a time extension for the 355 Sango Court multifamily affordable housing project. Next slide, please. And so, as mentioned, the application is for a one-time 18-month time extension request for the construction of a 102-unit multifamily apartment building with community space and offices for supportive services and associated site improvements on a 1.26 acre site located at 355 Sango Court. The original entitlements include a site development permit, density bonus, and environmental assessment. The original project was approved by the City Council on June 12th, 2018. The applicant, RCD Housing, has applied for building permits as of December 2019, and they are currently under plan check review. The buildings will continue to be reviewed under the 2016 building code, and the applicant anticipates starting construction in November of this year. And the applicant has applied for the time extension prior to the project's expiration date, which is allowed by the Milpitas Municipal Code. If approved, the entitlements would extend 18 months or until February 26, 2022. There will be no changes to the scope or design of the project associated with the entitlement request. The only revisions are to the resolution and conditions of approval. These changes are mostly clerical and do not affect the project's design or its ability to meet the density bonus requirements. Next slide, please. So a little bit of an overview of the project site. Here we see a satellite view of 355 Sango Court outlined in red. It is located west of Montague Expressway and south of the Penitencia Creek Trail. Next slide, please. The map on the screen demonstrates the project site's zoning designation. The project is located in the multiple family, very high density R4 zoning district with a transit-oriented development TOD overlay and has a general plan designation of high density transit-oriented residential. And it is also located within the transit area specific plan. Next slide, please. And here is a map of the transit area specific plan. And the project site is outlined in red. And so as you can see here, Sango Court and Tarab Court will be extending to meet each other. And then it will also meet up with the Milpitas Boulevard extension over to the east. So here is a rendering of the overall site of the project. Some things to note on this visual is the interior podium courtyard, as well as the at-grade courtyard and an outdoor terrace on the 5th floor. The building will also have a community room and offices for supportive services. They will also be installing solar panels on the roof. Next slide, please. And here's another rendering of the front or south facade of the building, looking west towards Sango Court, the planned park on the other side. Click. And this is the view of the entry from the southwest corner of the site. You can see the sawtooth facade treatment located on the west side of the building. Next. A notice was published in the Milpitas Post. A sign was placed at the property and postcards were sent to 69 residents and property owners within 300 feet of the project site. And one comment has been received to date, and it was in support of the project and included in the Planning Commission's packet. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Is it frozen or am I? Okay, great. Pursuant to, oh, sorry, I went too far. Can we go back one? Yeah, thank you. So pursuant to the Milpitas Municipal Code, an extension of the approval of a project may be granted if the current findings for the specific type of permit are made by the decision-making authority as the factual basis for the required findings and the previously approved use remain unchanged. Staff has confirmed that the project meets the current findings associated with a site development permit and density bonus as set out in the Milpitas Municipal Code. And those findings have been discussed in the staff report and are addressed in the resolution. Next. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission open and close the public hearing and they adopt Resolution 20-015 approving an extension of time for site development permit SD 17-0017 density bonus DB 17-0001 for 18 months at 355 Sango Court. That concludes staff summary of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well to answer any questions.
Commissioners, any quick questions for staff? Chair has a couple questions for Ms. Van Hoa. With regards to the 18 months extension, is this a one-time statutory allowance on the time extension?
Yes.
Yes, it's one time.
Okay, and this is a setup as a one large map, not a condo map. Is that correct?
There's no map associated with this project. It's an
Okay,
apartment
no problem.
building, and they're not subdividing or anything like that.
And the conditions for the future time when the construction documents are in, so it will be in abidance to the then in effect building codes at the time when the submittal is made, I would assume.
Correct. So they submitted last year in December 2019. So they're following the 2016 building code. So it was before the latest codes went into effect.
Great, thank you very much. Appreciate your response. And believe the applicant is with us as well. Would you like to make any comments?
Yes. Hi, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Brown. I'm a project manager with Resources for Community Development. We're the affordable housing developer for 355 Sango Court. We are requesting this time extension because, as Lillian said, our entitlements expired in June, but our building permits are under review with the building department, and we, since December 2019, and we've been working closely with them to address all their comments. Plan to resubmit that again very soon, and hope to start construction in November 2020.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. And commissioners, any questions for the applicant? Hearing none. This is a public hearing item, and Chair would like to open this up to the public comment at this point. Ms. Medina, is there any public comments on the matter? Ms. Medina, are there any public comments?
Oh heavens, I was muted, sorry.
No problem.
There's no public comment for this item.
Thank you very much. Okay, so can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move to close the public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner Chua and a second by Vice Chair, and I'll go ahead and poll the commissioners. Vice Chair Alcorn?
Aye.
Okay, and Commissioner Chua?
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza?
Aye.
Commissioner Belong?
Aye.
Commissioner Albana?
Aye.
Chair, aye as well. Motion passed, 7 ayes. And discussions, comments by the commission? Seeing none. Please, Commissioner Chong.
Yeah, just a quick question, in terms of the, so I understand the time extension, in terms of, maybe either for the applicant or the planner, just the chief reason for the time extension. Was there some, I guess I just want to understand the delay for it from the first one.
Yeah, I can speak on that. So yeah, throughout, since we've received approval, we've been working on, gaining the funding awards for this project. So we have applied to a variety of sources from the state. And so we received, the majority of our funding awards, and our latest one was from the state's Department of Housing and Community Development MHP program. And so that funding was awarded a few months ago. And so we've been working along the process with our lenders and through the design process as well. But so the main reason for the extension needed is that we don't have our permits approved at this point, and we are in the process of finalizing our financing to start construction.
Okay, thank you for the explanation. That's all the question I had, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Chuan. Question for Ms. Brown, and are you actively engaged in the site improvement plans through the engineering department to get your final map completed?
Yes, we are. We are working.
Great, thank you very much.
Process.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Please.
Yeah. So if I may, can we have on the screen the recommendations from staff? I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number 20-015, approving an extension of time for site development permit SD 17-0017, density bonus DB 17-0001 for 18 months at 355 Sango Court.
And I'll second. Second.
I'm sorry, since I don't have the video, so is a second from Commissioner Belong, I assume?
Second. Oh,
Yes.
whoever.
It's from Commissioner Blaza.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So poll the commissioners on the votes, and Vice Chair Alcorn.
Aye.
Commissioner Chua.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan.
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza.
Aye.
Commissioner Belong.
Aye.
Commissioner Albana.
Aye.
Chair, aye as well. Motion passes, 7 ayes. Congratulations to the
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good luck. And Director, the second hearing item this evening.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So our second public hearing item tonight is a fence variance. The home is located at 830 London Drive, and our associate planner Lillian Van Hoa will give the staff report, and I believe the property owner is also here. The variance is accompanied by a minor site development permit. Lillian will describe why each of those permits is necessary. In this case, the fence is, there's a height limit on the fence that's located in a front yard, but the fence, the subject fence, is it has kind of a little bit of a longer history, which Lillian will review, but they normally the fence in this location would only be up to, I believe, is it 40? I am going to get it wrong. I should just let you give the staff report rather than try to guess it. the height is limited, and they're asking for a 6'9" fence. And what is their front yard setback for this particular lot? That also is the side yard setback because of the shape of the lot. And there's some other circumstances that warrant consideration of a variance. So we'll turn the time over to Lillian for the staff report.
Ms. Van Walt, please.
Thank you, Director Thomas, and good evening once again, Chair, Vice Chair, and Planning Commissioners. As mentioned by the Director, the item before you is a request for a variance in minor site development permit at 830 London Drive. Next slide, please. So the application, as mentioned, is a request to allow the encroachment of a 6'9" tall fence within the 25-foot front yard setback of an existing single-family residence, and to allow the construction of the fence within the front yard, where the maximum fence height is typically 42 inches. And the permits, the entitlements they're seeking are for the variance to allow the structure itself within the front yard setback, as well as the height of the fence itself. And then the minor site development permit is required to simply allow the construction of the fence. Next slide, please. Here we see the satellite view of the subject property outlined in red. As you can see, the project site is an irregularly shaped lot. The site is located in the northeast section of the city, east of Interstate 680, north of the Jose Higuera Adobe Park, and west of the city's boundary and the hillside open space. The site is surrounded by other single-family homes and the Santa Clara Valley Water District property and trail to the east. Next slide, please. The map here demonstrates the project site zoning designation. It is zoned R110 single-family residential and has a general plan designation of single-family residential low density. And as you can see, the city's boundary is over to the east. Next slide, please. And here is the overall site plan of the proposed fence. So I will give you a brief history on the case, the project in front of you. So on June 13, 2019, the Code Enforcement Division issued a notice of abatement letter to the applicant. The notice cited a 6'9" wooden fence within the 10-foot public right-of-way easement and the additional 10-foot public utility easement without the benefit of an encroachment permit. The fence height and location were also in violation of the Milpitas Municipal Code, which requires that fences and walls shall not exceed 6 feet in height at the rear and side yards and 42 inches in height in the front yard. On July 23rd, 2019, the applicant filed an application for a variance permit for to allow a 6'9" wooden fence within the 10-foot public right-of-way and 10-foot PSUE and within the 25-foot front yard setback. And a few months later, in January 30th of this year, Code Enforcement held an administrative hearing regarding the citation, and the citation was upheld. Since the initial application date, staff and the applicant have all worked together, and the applicant has revised the application and modified their request to permit the fence behind the 10-foot right-of-way and 10-foot PSUE, but still within the 25 front yard setback as shown here on the slide. And on July 7th, 2020, Code Enforcement staff conducted an inspection and confirmed the relocation of the fence outside of the PSUE. Next slide, please. And these images here show the elevation, materials, and the height of the proposed fence. Next slide, please. A notice was published in the Milpitas Post, a sign was placed at the property, and 88 postcards were sent to residents and property owners within 500 feet of the project site. And no comments have been received to date. Next slide, please. Staff has confirmed the project meets the findings associated with the variance and minor site development permit. Some of those findings to note about the project site are that the site itself is an irregularly shaped lot. It is adjacent to the hillside open space and publicly accessible trail. And due to the grade changes between the trail and the property, the applicant is facing issues with security and privacy. And based on these three factors, staff believes that the project is consistent with all the findings associated with the variance and minor site development permit. Next slide, please. The project is categorically exempt from further environmental review under CEQA guideline section 15303, new construction or conversion of small structures, subdivision E, accessory structures. And as a separate and independent basis, the project is consistent with section 15183, projects consistent with a community plan or zoning, as the project is consistent with the Milpitas general plan. Next slide, please. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission open and close the public hearing and they adopt resolution 20-016 approving variance permit number VA 19-0003 and minor site development permit number MS 19-0144 subject to the findings and conditions of approval. This concludes staff's summary of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Code enforcement staff is here and the homeowner is here as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Benoit. Commissioners, any questions for staff? Commissioner Chua?
Oh, me?
Yes.
Ms. Benoit, can you please put up the slide that shows the fence itself?
IT?
The one that shows the wooden fence. I think it's about
this one?
That one. So when I'm looking at this, like this one, oops, sorry. Oh, can we go back, please? If I'm looking at the top left, the picture photo, this is from the outside, correct? Going in.
That's not the front of the fence. The homeowner can confirm, but I have a slide at the end of the slide number 12, if you can go there, that shows a picture of the front from when I visited the site. So that's, yeah.
Oh.
So this is what it currently looks like.
So this is, so this is London Street.
Correct.
Right. So the house is here.
Yes.
Okay. So this is 6.9, correct? Is that what
we're 6 foot 9 inches.
9 inches. So the original, what we're allowing is 42 inches. It's a standard, right?
Correct.
And the reason for the variance is the irregular shape of the lot. Correct?
Yes, that's one of the reasons, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure. And there's nobody So they're at the end of the street, so there's nobody. What's in front of them? What's on the other side of London Street, on this side?
If you want to, if you can go to slide 3, we can pull that up.
There's none.
So there's another single family residence across the street here.
This one? Okay, but there's none. Yeah. Okay, that looks good. Thank you much.
If I may, Mr. Chair, through the chair, yeah, the fence directly to the north across the street has a fence that is very similar, a wooden fence that's very similar in design to this one. It's a little bit different situation because it's actually the back, or excuse me, it's the side yard as well of that house. They do not have a public utility easement, so the fence is closer to the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
The situation is, and it's in a different zoning district as well, a zoning, yeah. So situation's a little bit different, but the fence is the same.
Okay, that makes sense for a variance. Good job, Mr. Panwa. I like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question.
Yes, please, Commissioner Blaza.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the map from the top. There's a brown portion. Is that the place where the fence is placed?
Which, this view right here that we have
Yes.
up on the screen?
Yes. So on the right side, can you see my arrow? Oh no, you can't. Anyway, on the right side, there's a brown, there's grass behind it, and then there's soil that doesn't have sod on it. Bring it down to the left, there, that portion. Is that part of the homeowner's lot?
Yes, so this dirt area here belongs to the homeowner.
Okay, got it. Thank you. No more questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Blaza. Any other questions?
I have a couple questions.
Vice Chair?
So, in some of the pictures, the fence seems pretty close to the fire hydrant. Is that normal? For staff, anyone on staff?
Yeah, I don't believe we have a standard for the fire hydrant. We can check really quickly with the fire department, but normally.
I have to assume that there's, some sort of standard though, because, especially, you can't park in front of them, you can't have things too close to them, around them. I potentially see that as a hazard. If it's too close to the fence and the hose connect is, facing the fence, there's a possibility you wouldn't be able to, put a hose on there. I did see that. Is our code enforcement on here? I thought I saw.
I am.
Hi, Vice Chair. Can you hear me?
Who
Hello?
said that?
This is Sachin. Can you hear me?
Oh, okay. Hold on. I'm gonna direct the question to staff first.
Oh, okay. Now I wanted to comment on that fire hydrant because
I understand. I understand. I'm
That's an
gonna.
old picture. That's an old picture. That's why.
The applicant, we will be asking you for a presentation, and this is not a Q&A session at this point.
Okay. All right.
Chair, please.
So I saw someone from code enforcement there. Are they still on?
I thought I heard her speak.
She was there, but now she's
Zulema? Not sure what happened.
back in.
Vice Chair, do you have another question that we can go ahead have staff respond while we're waiting for the...
I think actually a lot of my questions are for code enforcement. But if anyone does know it, so I heard that there was a check to make sure that necessary changes were made, and I just wanted to confirm that it is 100% in compliance. Since it's already built, I just want to make sure that it's not like if there's any changes that need to be made, it's not like, oh, we just change the plans and then when it's built, it's all up to par. I just want to confirm that this is actually all up to par and all up to code and everything.
She just came back on. Zulema?
Oh, yes. Can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you.
Okay. Great. Hi, my name
How you
is
doing?
Zulema. Doing well. How can I help?
Good. So I had a couple questions. So in the attachments that we got, that's showing some pictures of the fence, I noticed it was fairly close to a fire hydrant, and I wanted to get your input on that. Is it too close? Is that allowed by law? Fire hydrants, they have, to my understanding, there are some rules that go along with the placement of fire hydrants, and obviously you can't park in front of them and that kind of stuff. So I just want a little bit of insight on the fire hydrant there.
You are correct. There is a required clearance of 3 feet all the way around.
Okay. And is right now, is the fence in compliance with that?
I believe so. I don't have the pictures in front of me, but I believe it is more than 3 feet away.
Okay. I thought I heard, correct me if I'm wrong, I thought I heard that there was a check on the fence after they were told to make some changes?
Correct.
Okay, and so after that check, was the fence shown to be in compliance with all the rules and regulations there?
Not exactly. Ned had asked the applicant to move the fence out of the utility easement, which was 10 feet back from the backside of the sidewalk, and he did comply with that, but it's still at this point, and the reason they are requiring the variance, 6 feet and 9 inches tall. Usually in the front setback, it's the maximum of 42 inches.
Okay. So it was moved and it is now completely clear of the easement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And any other questions from commissioners?
Yeah, I had one for staff.
Please.
In the last picture that you had up of the fence looking from London, can we pull that up?
Are you referring to this picture or the other one?
The other one, the elevated one.
Sure. Can you pull up? Yeah, the one at the end of the slideshow.
So the dirt spot in front from the sidewalk to the fence, is that the homeowner's property or?
So it is the homeowner's property, but there is a utility easement. And so that means that they cannot put any structure there.
Okay, and that means no landscaping either?
Not necessarily. I'm sure they could put grass and whatnot, but it essentially the easements have to be free and clear so that if the city needs to dig up or do repairs to that particular utility line, that there's nothing obstructing them from doing so. And so like landscaping, that's like obviously no large trees could go there because then they would have to rip that out, but like just simple grass or like bark even would be okay.
And if I may add to that through the chair, so the reason that it looks this way, I would imagine, when the fence was originally installed, it was right at the back of the sidewalk, and so it, as Lillian described, it encroached on the public utility easement, which is not allowed. So when they moved it back, this was just the condition that it was left in. But yeah, they're able to landscape. They just would not be able to plant trees or put any permanent structures within that public utility easement. The underlying you know how easements work, that the underlying property is owned by the property owner, but there is a legal access easement across the property that does not allow them to build on it.
And that's all I had, Chair. Thank you. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? Chair has a few questions for Ms. Van Hoa. So if we can go back to slide, the slide with the red borders for the property, I believe that's page number 3. That's the one, yes. Okay, so this particular slide, it's a sort of a parallelogram in a way. So what is defined as the front? So it's 4 sides. So there's definitively there's a front and a rear, and then how do we define what is what, where's what? If staff would illuminate me on that point.
Sure. So, I mean, technically this particular property has 5 sides. So there's a front, which is the front property line that's facing London Drive. And so the rear is the property line directly parallel to the front property line. And that definition is in our Milpitas Municipal Code. And then so the remaining lines on this are the side property lines.
Okay,
so they have 3 sides and 1 front property line and 1 rear property line.
So the long side property line that borders onto it looks like the a walkway, that is considered a side yard fence line. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and are there any approved precedents within the city with regards to allowing for a front yard that would extend out to the height that which the current applicant is asking?
So there was a similar property located on Wessex Place that was approved to have a 6-foot tall fence within the front yard. And that was back in 1988.
Just based on your understanding of that particular approval, was there extenuating circumstances associated with it?
The lot shape is similar. I have not visited that site, so I can't say that that they're exactly the same, but they have a similar I guess trapezoid sort of shaped lot.
Okay, thank you. And so on the long diagonal property line that fronts onto the looks like a trail, a public trail, how tall is the fence along that particular property line? As I assume that's also a new fence that's built as well with this effort.
That I'm not sure. The applicant will have to confirm the height of that. I'm not sure if the whole entire fence was replaced as part of this or if only the front portion of it. To me, it looks like it's just the front portion, but
okay.
They can confirm.
Can you just, since I've not visited the site, if you can just sort of educate me, the trail walkway, is it substantially higher than the general ground line levels of the property itself, or is just a kind of a minor differentials?
It's about a 10-foot grade difference.
So the trail is 10 foot higher than the property line itself, right?
Yes.
Okay. So that so the side yard fence is, if there's any privacy concerns of someone quote unquote looking in, that will probably be the most concern, because you're pretty much you're going to be above the fence, top of the fence, and can have a direct visual access to the site, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. The fence across the way is director alluded to earlier, that looks like it was very, very close to the sidewalk as well. Was that done via a some sort of variance or a use permit granted at some point in time?
There's none on city records. That property is also zoned R1H, so that's an entirely separate zoning designation that's subject to different requirements.
Okay, so the applicant, in essence, constructed the fence based on his interpretation of what he can do, and then enclose the fire hydrants and as well as other utility boxes within the confines of the quote unquote the then private property. There was absolutely no request to the city for approvals, correct?
You're asking if they sought approval for this before building it?
Yes, originally.
Correct. They did not seek approval
Okay.
or request any permits, I should say.
I would say, if I might interject there,
Please.
and the applicant will be able to give you the additional details. It's my understanding that when the original fence was built, the contractor who put in the fence, according to the property owner, did contact the city. And I don't know the nature of that conversation. I wasn't privy to it. But as Lillian indicated, the fence was constructed without the benefit of the permit. And that was also an issue, as well as the encroachment into the utility easement.
Thank you. And for Ms. Fenghua, so when the applicant inquired about the sort of the preservation of privacy, he was really kind of referring to the from London Drive, look from the public right-of-ways or other points of view towards his side yard, backyard. Is that a reference of privacy that you spoke of?
Yes. So the applicant in his justification letter indicated that there's lots of traffic on the trail, and so he's being deprived of that, right of security and privacy.
Okay, so we just heard that the trail is generally about 10 foot above the main ground line levels of the building, of the site elevation. So whether you build a 6-foot fence or 6'9" fence, that is somewhat, somebody is already standing 3 to 4 feet above you to begin with. So unless you got really tall trees, nothing's going to block your view from the trail. So the violation fences is really primarily focused on the front and on the side yard, which are 6'9", and our zoning ordinance is at 42 inches. So that the privacy, as you described, what the applicant has discussed is really from the trail, and the trails on the side yard, and which is not you have a base delta of elevation of almost 4 feet to begin with. I can build a 12-foot fence and still not going to provide me much privacy at all. So I find that kind of perplexing. Thank you, staff. We appreciate it. Any other questions for staff from commissioners? Okay, hearing none. And so
Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt. I think if I'm able to share my screen, I do have a visual on the fence that is similar to this one that was constructed at Wessex Place. This is a few streets down. It's in the same general vicinity. Oh, are you able to see that visual of the fence?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, this is Wessex Place, and it's almost the identical situation where you have a home, and these lots at the end of the cul-de-sac are extra large on the side, and so this house also place. I do not know whether this house, it looks like it may also have a public utility easement because as you can see, it's also set back some feet away, and then you're to the end, and then you have the same situation at the end of the cul-de-sac, and this is Wessex Place. And then if you would like to see, let me show you one other item. So that's Wessex, which is here, and then the subject property is to the north. I'll be able to find it here. Too far. Up a little bit further. I've gone too far. Sorry, I was going to show you the one across the street. Oh,
you had it.
oh, I did have it. Is it? Yeah, London Drive there. Excuse me. So I believe you'll be able to see it here. So again, this is the condition, and so this was before the fence was installed. So essentially all of this property was unusable, and the applicant the property owner can let you know, I think that their intent was to be able to make this space usable. So the fence has been installed, but right across the street is a similar type fence in this regard. But as Lillian mentioned, this is in a different zoning district and there isn't a public utility easement. So it's a little closer. It's allowed to be closer to the sidewalk.
Director, may I request you circle back to the retaining wall view?
Yeah.
Thank you. Sure. Can you zoom in a little bit more?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And it's my understanding, and again, the property owner can confirm this, I believe that the retaining wall was installed, Lillian, did you say by the city or by the water district? And it actually encroaches.
Water district.
Yeah, it actually encroaches a few feet onto the property, the private property. And
okay.
The trail is above, so you can see the difference in the elevation here.
So is that trail actually open to the general public?
I believe it is. It looks like it's fenced off, but I don't know if there's access in there somewhere. The applicant can confirm that. And here's the hydrant.
Through the chair, if I may.
Please.
So right behind the retaining wall there, do you have some trees? And those are no longer there, or is that still there?
And we'll have to confirm. This is an older photo from, well, let's see if we've got one from.
No, that's the latest one. And I can't recall if the trees are there or not.
Property owner will be able to confirm if the trees are there. I believe the trees may be on the water district property, and then the fence encroaches a bit.
Okay. All right. Ms. Van Wall, were you able to confirm whether that trail was open or strictly for service purposes?
I couldn't tell when I was at the site.
Okay.
Obviously, I don't live there, so I don't know like the frequency at which that the trail is being used.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Commissioner Belong, does the staff answer your questions?
Yeah, the reason I was asking about the trees is because that seems like that's blocking the pathway there. So that was the only reason why I asked.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions from commissioners? Okay, hearing none. Like to provide time for presentation for the applicant, and you have 5 minutes to do your presentation. Would you please? Thank you.
Yeah, hi. This is Sachin here. Thanks. Can you hear me very well?
Loud and clear.
All right, perfect. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to present. I really appreciate Lillian and also the planning director, Ned Thomas, support in the entire process. I think they have gone above and beyond in their official time and has spent time with me understanding the situation and really supported in the whole journey here. Let me address a couple of scenarios here. First of all, the first question was fire hydrant. The fire hydrant fence, when we actually took it out from the ESUE line, the easement, it is now clear of 10 feet. So the fire hydrant and the fence has a 10-foot distance. So that's number one. Second, the back trail that you see is actually a Santa Clara Valley Water District pathway. It is closed for general public. However, I have seen people have directly come in from that side, from the Adobe Higuera Park, and has gone from that side to there's a pond behind that, on that area where they go for fishing. And I have seen those people coming over there. So that's a couple of things that I want to address immediately. The reason we actually built this fence is we actually, when we bought this house 2 years back, this is our second house in Milpitas. We love this city, and that's why we decided to purchase this house. We saw it's a cul-de-sac, end of the road property. When we purchased it, we immediately saw a lot of people actually come at this London Drive, not the trail that you mentioned, but the London Drive. There are a lot of people who come for exercise, and they have a direct view to my entire backyard from the London Drive because it's at the elevation. So my house actually starts at the low of the elevation, and there's a gradual elevation towards the end of the road where there is an entire 300-acre property that starts after that. So which means that anyone who actually stands at the end of my property has a direct entry and a view to my entire backyard. I mean, including swimming pool and everything. I have small kids. I also have elderly family, parents who live with me. So we thought that was a security issue for us, which was very paramount for us. There was a lot of property. We have seen many people actually peeking into our backyard many times. And I have pictures also submitted for that one. Second, we have had multiple burglaries in the last 1.5 years. I have submitted that to Milpitas as well. In fact, I have a record of, we have almost 3 burglaries out of 11 in month of February, just on London Drive, And there's a police report of that one. We had car theft on my property, and we actually got saved because nobody could enter my backyard directly because of that fence. But there's a video, and there's also a report that I had filed with police as well. We had another burglary on April 28, 2020 on London Drive, and the person actually went into the backyard itself. So there is, because this area is so much secluded in a way, we have seen it is very easy for strangers to come and actually could jump over the fence and come, has direct access to our property. The last thing we also have seen is a lot of people actually come and park on London Drive, which they don't live there, and they jump over the fence of Milpitas, the Santa Clara Water District, and they go for fishing from there. And I have seen they have they walk over through that particular trail and can have access to my property coming from the side or from the front itself, which I still call it as a side, but if you want to call it as a front, that's the front, they can have direct access to my property. So considering all of that, we decided to build the fence. Before building the fence, we actually called Milpitas City twice. And I have names of those people that I had called. I do not have record that I had called, but if we go back into the history of call records, you will see that we had called Milpitas City. There was one person specifically that is, I believe Lillian's counterpart, we had called and we had asked very specific question: do we have any restrictions of building a fence? The reason we all asked that question, because we saw a fence, as Ned and Lillian pointed out, there's an exact similar fence in front of my property, which was built after the house was purchased, not before. So that fence was close to the sidewalk, not even PSUE, was built after the property was purchased. So that's one.
And
second,
sorry, if you can, this is the chair, and so the 5 minutes has come up, and since we're getting a lot of information, the chair would just elect to go ahead and grant the applicant another 5 minutes. So if you can go ahead and complete your presentation within the next 5 minutes, so we can hear the full story. Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sorry for the long story here. But then we also looked at the second property based on Lillian's recommendation, the Wessex Place, exact same shape, and they have built the fence. And eventually we found out that they have a permit approval through variance. So we thought, okay, so I sat with Ned and Lillian, and we decided to push the fence back, because initially I spent almost $15,000 to really build that fence, beautiful fence, to protect my family, protect from all the strangers that come on the London Drive, all the burglaries that had happened. So we decided to build a fence, and then I sat with Ned. I said, okay, I'm gonna spend an additional $5,000 just to put that fence back behind the PSUE line, within the stipulated time that was given by Ned to us, which is before end of July. Before end of June, I believe. And then we actually did that part, even though there was a lot of, due to unprecedented situations currently, we didn't have any workers available. We eventually found, and we put that back. So this is where we are from a fence situation perspective. It is number one situation for us, or a scenario for us, is the security for my family. As you can see from this top view, it has a direct entry and from that London Drive to my property. Anybody who's standing on that sidewalk and can jump over the fence anytime. If my fence is 42-inch, they have a direct entry to my backyard. There is no way I could even protect my family on that. Second, there was a question around the wall and those trees. That wall is built by the city of Milpitas back in 1990, when there was a flood or water that came. Because when I purchased this house 2 years back, I was told that the city actually made that retaining wall to protect this house, because it was a Santa Clara Water District's problem. Those trees are maintained by me. They are on my properties, and they actually give me some kind of a protection on the side on that yard, because there is no specific, there is no wooden fence on that side. There is only a Santa Clara Valley District fence, which is a barbed wire kind of a fence. So we have seen a lot of wild animals, bobcat. In fact, I had sent a picture of bobcat coming into our backyard, and we had to call animal control to get that out, right? We have seen other wild animals who could come there. So those trees actually kind of protect us from privacy, also from wild animals. I just wanted to clarify that point. Those trees were existing before we purchased the house. The fence in question is only on that front setback that was built. So that is my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your presentation. And commissioners, do you have questions for the applicant? I'm sorry, I've got the view of the overhead view right now, so I can't see anyone raising their head. So anyone has questions? Okay. The chair has a few, seeing none, and that chair has a few questions for the applicant here. So in your presentation there, you've noted several burglaries within on London Drive. Was your house specifically burglarized?
Yeah, in fact, on November 14, 2019, my car was burglarized.
Okay, that was parked on the driveway, I assume?
That was parked in the driveway. He opened, and I think there was an attempt in trying to get in. Because I had cameras, I woke up at 4 a.m. and my only mistake that at that time I did is I actually ran behind after them, and they ran away. There's a police report of that as well.
Okay, and from your perspective, the difference between a 42-inch and a 60-inch, a 6 foot versus a 6 foot 9 inches fence, between the 6 foot and the 6 foot 9, is there a major difference in terms of the sense of security as a top of a current fence as constructed? It's really open lattice work, so it is a see-through no matter what. So
Yeah.
privacy is impaired.
Yeah. So the reason it is 6'9" because when we build a fence, we actually build a fence with a lattice on top, and that lattice added the 6'9" as the height, and that's why we asked for that one. My initial goal is to actually put trees within my property, so that when people actually on the sidewalk, they do not have a access to my property or has a direct view to my property. Because if the fence is 42 inches, anyone can jump directly into my property very easily. Right now, I've seen many people jumping over the Santa Clara Valley fence to go for, I assume that they're going for fishing over there, but I don't know what else they're doing. But many times I've seen that one. That's why we build a fence 6 feet, and there's a nice look to it, which is the lattice that we added so that it looks nice and beautiful from a neighborhood appeal perspective.
Okay, all right. And just 1 second, I have another question here for you. The purpose of extending it all the way out, to that as front as possible, is that so that you can gain the usable side yard space, or is this for some other purposes?
No, that was not the purpose. Initially, the purpose was solely to stop the public view directly into my backyard, protect the family from all the entrance that we had, the burglaries and everything. That was the sole purpose of building that fence. I do not have any intention of building any property on it. We are a small family. We are not building any construction on it. In fact, that lot was empty. Previous owner had been using to park his RV there. I plan to put a lot of trees and actually beautify that place so that it looks good from appeal perspective. But my sole purpose of adding a fence, that when somebody is standing on that sidewalk near the fire hydrant, which is the far end corner of my property, does not have, number one, a view into my property from a backyard, and second, do not have direct entry by just jumping over it. That is the main purpose of that fence.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, sir, have you posted out the private property signs anywhere, where people are quote unquote walking on your property on sort of undefined public-private areas?
No, I have not posted any sign, but I do have an Xfinity sign that says this is, protected by cameras and all. So I don't know whether that counts.
No, just in terms of because you're describing that you have a lot of folks walking, on your or near your property, because anybody who walks on your property becomes your insurance liability issue as well. So so just wondering if you have ever posted signs out there, just notifying that they are what's in front of them is a private property.
No, I haven't posted that sign. No.
Okay. Well, sir, thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate it. And so this being a public hearing item, and so Ms. Medina, are there any public comments on this?
Chair, we have not received any public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'd like to.
Commissioner Blaza, please.
Yes, I'm on Google Maps, and I just wanted to verify the homeowner. I'm standing at the corner of the lot near the what do you call this? The fire hydrant, and he's right. You can actually see right into his backyard. I can see a basketball court, and I guess there's a pergola, and I can see the pool. Just wanted to verify that. Thanks.
That's true. Thank you. Yeah, that's true.
Thank you, Commissioner. And can I have a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Motion to close the public hearing?
And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion from Vice Chair and a motion from Commissioner Blaza. So I'll go ahead and take a poll of the commissioners to close the public hearing. Commissioner Albana?
Aye.
Commissioner Belong?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza?
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan?
Aye.
Commissioner Chua? Commissioner Chua?
Aye.
Thank you. And Vice Chair?
Aye.
Chair, aye. So 7 ayes, motion carries, and the public hearing is closed. And so commissioners, discussions
Chair.
and questions.
Chair, I just want to make sure I have clarification with staff and the applicant here. So,
Would you please?
Yeah. So to be upfront, I completely understand the need for a fence. I totally get it. It does look nice. I just want to confirm. So you had a contractor out to build the fence, and so you say they contacted the city, and then he went on and built the fence. Is that correct? So why was there no record, or what did they do? What did they tell you when you contacted the city at first?
So is this question for me or this is for the staff?
Yeah. We'll send it, because if there's no record, I don't think there's anything logged. So what did they tell you?
Yeah, let me clarify. So the contractor never called the city. I called the city twice.
Okay.
There was I don't have the name right now in front of me. It was in my first documentation that I submitted to city. The name was mentioned, the two people that I called. If I find, I will send it to you guys, but I don't have those right now, unfortunately. 2 times we called before building the fence. First time we called, we asked exactly the same question: do we have any limitations of building the fence? And answer is no. Second time we called, there was a person, I'm blanking out on that person. I think he's a Lillian's counterpart. Again, I do not have records, so it's my word, at this moment. But I assure you, we had called twice, and after calling and they're saying that no, there are no restrictions on your property for the fence, we looked at this property in front of us, and then we looked at the Wessex, and we said, okay, there is nothing limitations, so we could actually extend this out and build a fence so that we protect our family. So that was the thought process that went, and the chronology in terms of the calling city of Milpitas and then building the fence.
Okay, I have a hard time wrapping my head around why anyone would say that there's no limitations, because you're right next to the gated trail. You have the easement. I mean, any planner with who just types in the address could probably list a number of restrictions. Plus, there's the overall standard height restriction. And so I understand the need for a fence, and heck, if that was my house, I'd probably want a fence too, be honest. I want to reinforce that you should not be building before you have the proper permits. And if what you say is true, you weren't told you needed proper permits, I can't think of any planner in Milpitas who would just be like, oh no, you can build a 50-foot tall fence if you want. There's no restrictions. I can't think of any planner who would ever say that. Especially not in Milpitas. We have great planners here, but I just want to reinforce, like, it's it's troublesome that, you know, it was just built and then permits later, you know, people do things, they don't realize it needs permits. It happens. We just need to make sure that you're 100% cooperative and you follow the steps. And when it's brought to your attention, you know, we need to make sure you're on the ball and you're following the steps and you're going through. But I think that wraps up my comments. Again, I understand the need for fence. I get it. It's just, you know, just like everybody else in the city, we got a procedure. We have, you know, a plan, you know, we have steps you need to walk through. So just make sure, you're following the steps and just like everyone else in Milpitas.
Yeah. I think we learned our lessons by paying hefty price for it. I had to
that'll do that to you.
We built a fence and then I had to take it back. But you know, I want to acknowledge Lillian as well as Ned Thomas and as well as Zulema Maggie, who was diligent enough to follow up on this, as well as making sure that she has given me a grace period during that COVID-19 situation that we had a shutdown and block and everything. So I really appreciate their support in this process. But again, as you said, we learned our lesson. We did spend the additional $5,000 to take that fence back behind the PSU line.
And then I have one more question. This one's actually for staff. If this gets approved tonight, will there be one final inspection before everything is said and done? Just to make sure everything's up to par and up to code, will there be a last inspection? Because it sounds, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like there hasn't been an inspection since they moved it out of the utility easement. Yeah.
Commissioner, this is Sulema Maggi, and yes, we, in order for me to close my case, I will have to do a final inspection.
Okay, perfect. That's what I needed to know. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Questions, comments from commissioners? Thank you. And Chair has a question circling back to the Vice Chair's comments. So to the applicant, did you reach the planning department that was asking the fence height and fence location issue, or were you with a Public Works or some other departments? I'm just kind of curious.
No, it was, we did
postpartum to it.
We did call. Now, so we did call planning department. There was only one number and we got transferred there. I can submit the name. I mean, right now I'm still searching for that name on my documentation that I submitted. We did call planning, but as I said, the question, probably this was due to the way the question is there a limitation, right, on the fence? And our thing is, my understanding, when we build a fence, I looked at the fence from the front yard, the property in my front, as well as the Wessex. And the definition, which is the question that you asked, what is the definition of a front of a property? Because my property is such an elongated shape, which is trapezoid, my understanding is that that area comes under the side. But then once we build a fence and once the code enforcement started, Lillian explained that, you know, this comes under front, which is not explained anywhere on the CTA documentation.
Okay.
Somebody has to talk to someone, which is what the price we paid.
Understand. So let me ask you a personal question here. So when you're standing in the backyard and you're at your pool enjoying your property, do you feel your privacy is significantly affected with the folks that may be on a trail unauthorized behind you?
It is, sir. It is actually definitely. We definitely get people looking into our property directly who come there to walk. Before that fence, it was a direct view. I mean, if somebody is just playing there or changing clothes or whatever in the swimming pool, it's a direct view. Right now, because of it's a little bit of height, it's restricted. But at least it protects us from that nobody could even jump on it. That's what my concern. So, but if I'm sitting in my backyard, as you said, enjoying as everybody else, I have a constant fear that somebody that is watching who's coming there or can jump over it, who's coming there for fishing on that back pool.
So if I make it understand, the fence that you built, it goes from the corner of your house, goes all the way around to the front, and on that elongated side yard, the shore leg, and all the way along the Santa Clara County trail, right? Is that correct?
No, the fence is not built on the Santa Clara County side. The fence is not built there.
I'm just saying along on your property line, along the trail. Is that correct? That's also a 6'9" fence. That's
no, that fence. There is no fence there.
Okay.
That is only that fence is built by Santa Clara City Water Line. That's their fence.
Okay.
I don't have a fence on that side, but because I have the jasmine trees, and those trees that you saw from the pictures, it kind of blocks the view of anybody who's coming from that trail. Now that trail, one entry is closed to that trail. However, anybody can come from that Adobe Higuera Park, can cross over and come to that trail easily and to go for fishing. And I have seen many people coming on that side.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions for the from the commissioners to the applicant?
If I may, Chair.
Please.
Just for the record, to clarify, the definition for a yard, both a front yard and a side yard and the rear yard, are all found in the zoning ordinance under the definition section. I can read that really quickly, just for information for the record, but the front yard means a yard extending across the full width of the lot, the depth of which is the minimum horizontal distance between the front lot line and the line parallel thereto. So in this case, we'll just simplify that. So the front yard is the yard extending across the full width of the lot. And in this particular zoning district, as Evelyn pointed out, the normal setback for the house, any building or fence would be, is it 25 feet, Lillian?
Yes.
So if normally, or and I don't want to, I was not part of the phone call, but normally what would have happened if someone called in now, I think the planner would advise them to come in. We normally like to see a site plan so that we need to know the address so that we can catch things like utility easements. But that may or may not have happened in this case. And I certainly don't want to conjecture what was said, but normally what would have been said is, well, this is the front yard of your house. Your setback, your minimum setback is 25 feet, which this house is. And the previous fence that we saw in the air photo was 25 feet back. And they would have said that the maximum height is the 42 inches. And then for the side yard, so this actually becomes the side yard of the house too, that goes over to the water district line. Is the side yard means the yard between the main building, in this case the house, and the side lot line extending from the front yard, or the front line where no front yard is required, to the rear yard. And then there's some width specifications. So in this case, again, we're looking at a variance, and it somewhat qualifies only because of the shape, the irregular shape of the lot. It's not your typical rectangular lot, and so even though we have a front, a side, and a rear yard, the extension of the side yard is really what the Planning Commission is looking at, as well as the change in the topography, as you have well discussed tonight. But I just wanted to point out where there are very specific definition for the front and the side in the zoning ordinance.
Thank you, Director. Appreciate it. I think from the chair's position, I'm looking at this absolutely sympathetic and empathetic towards the applicant's privacy plight. That is, quote unquote, it's a little bit intrusive, intruding when you do have the folks that kind of staring into it. But also, we also, from my perspective, looking at this from a city's perspective, this is not the only lot that which we have, a kind of an unusual circumstance occurring. And there's a setting of a precedence. I think it kind of divides into two things. One is that, as the applicants, alluded to, is the height, so that the partial visual blockage, and two is that the jumping over, and that the second part of it is really the definition of the front yard, where's really the front yard. In this case here, there's a little bit of gray area. I'm absolutely sympathetic with the applicant, but also at the same time, I think it's setting the precedence with regards to that for other property owners who will have similar issues and concern about that, and like to hear commissioners' comments or any discussion on this particular item.
Through the chair, I was thinking the same thing, setting precedents, and just wanted to get feedback maybe from the city attorney or staff on how that works.
From legal's perspective, variances are always, by nature, there's always a variable in that. The standards and the findings, they're to some extent subjective, but to the extent that the staff report and the findings in the resolution justify the standards for granting a variance or granting a minor site development permit, those are always the objective criteria that the cities need to abide by. I think in terms of setting precedents, that is always an open risk with anything, in particular with variances. But I think that in this case, with the security and the privacy, those are factors that I think can be considered as part of a variance. But yes, there is a risk of precedence. Yeah.
Thank you.
Setting precedence. Sorry.
Thank you. And Commissioner Chua.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of like perplexed here. I don't see any setting up a precedence, because a variance is, there's a variance, is the irregular shape of the lot itself is a variance. Do you see what can somebody explain to me where they see the precedence here?
I can comment on that. What they're talking about is just kind of setting the precedence for kind of asking for forgiveness over permission. And we can't say that for sure that's what's happening just because the applicant claims he spoke to the city, and then there's no record of that. And so I think what they're concerned about is just kind of that, plus also the precedence of kind of the type of fence that they're building and where they're building it. It's not normal, and there's a reason why we need a variance for it, is because by the standard general plan and the codes and everything, you can't have a fence like that. And so that's why we need a variance. So I think what they're talking about is they don't want to set a precedence and just kind of have everyone fence off their front yard in that aspect. And like has been said by countless people here, this is kind of a unique situation because he's right next to the trail. You can't, if you're on certain parts, you can't see directly into his backyard. And so this is kind of a unique situation, which is why we're considering this variance right now, because it has met findings to lead for that application to lead itself here. So that's the kind of precedence they're talking about here. It's kind of two-sided. There's two areas that they're talking about. We do still have code enforcement on the call. Maybe not to, and you can continue, Evelyn, if you want, but maybe at some point they can say, like, what's the procedure for finding non-compliant fences or anything non-compliant, and that can be publicly stated here to kind of like, okay, like we're dealing with this now, but if you try and build something that's not permitted and you kind of bypass the permit process, this is what code enforcement has to do. So maybe they at some point can chime in and kind of say the process for dealing with non-permitted structures like this.
So, Chair, I'd like to make a comment, Chair.
Commissioner,
I didn't want to cut Evelyn off too much, so I would like to
recognize you in a minute. And I think Commissioner Chua, have you finished your comment, or you have more?
Okay, I just want to clarify that the issue on non-permitted when they built the fence, isn't that what they're doing now? Is they will be in compliance with what we expected, what the code expect them to comply with. So that shouldn't be an issue anymore.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to me, just to keep it simple, there is an irregularly shaped lot, which is the house built on, and they're trying to do a fence that will be in code. So so that's it.
Okay, and thank you, Commissioner.
That's my input.
So before I get to Commissioner Blaza, the code enforcement was supposed to be responding to Vice Chair's question. So I'll recognize Commissioner Blaza after code enforcement.
Thank you. So the city of Milpitas is reactive. What that means is we respond only to complaints, and the city of Milpitas does allow for anonymous complaints, which is the majority way that we receive complaints. Most people do not like to state their name or say who they are because they don't want to have problems with their neighbors. And our files, once they are closed, are public information. So we probably, most likely we received it via a complaint that was anonymous. I don't have a name on the file. Sometimes we do get a name, but in this case there is a name. So I'm assuming that we received an anonymous complaint. And then we go out and we verify whether the complaint is valid.
And if it is valid, what's the process from then? Kind of like from where they are to where we are right now.
Oh, so if it is valid, case is opened and then it's assigned to an officer. And then they go out, they do the initial inspection, they take a picture. A lot of times we try to make a contact in person via a door hanger or knocking on the door. And then we'll come back to the office, we'll upload the picture, we have a boilerplate for these letters that is sent out. In this case, for zoning, they get a 30-day notice to comply.
And if they don't, I'm guessing there's fees attached, and I know at some point it gets escalated to county code enforcement. Is that all correct?
No, we don't escalate it to county code enforcement.
Okay.
So after the 30-day notice, if they have not complied, we will issue a notice of violation which is an administrative citation. The first one is 100, the second one is 200, and subsequent are 500.
Okay.
Okay.
So, I mean, the precedence I was kind of talking about was, I mean, if people do this and they don't go through the process, they will be fined. And I don't know of anyone who wants to pay multiple $500 fines.
Well, that usually is encouraging people to comply.
Yeah, that would encourage me to comply. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and Commissioner Blaza.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on the precedence issue. If definitely building the fence on the front yard of this home on London Drive, there will be a precedence, but there will also be an argument that if the situation is the same as 830 London Drive, then definitely you can put up a fence on your front yard. But if it's not the same situation, definitely you cannot. Correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, you're correct. If we had the exact same situation and what normally would happen, someone would call into the city, we would advise them that yes, you can put a fence in your front yard, but the height is limited to the 43 inches, and it has to. excuse me, yes, and it has to be set back according to whatever the setback is within that zoning district. Here it happens to be 25 feet. So just to clarify, and then if they want to do anything different than that, they could ask for a variance, which is what happened here. And so the variance really covers both the height of the fence, the difference with, up to 6 feet 9 inches, and then also the location within the normal 25-foot setback. In this case, it's a 10-foot setback behind the public utility easement.
Thank you, Director. And Chair's question for code enforcement. So just out of curiosity, how much accumulated fine has been on this particular item?
There was 3 citations issued. The last for 500 was waived because he moved the fence in good faith. Ned felt it was necessary to waive in order to fully achieve compliance. Okay, thank you very much, ma'am. Appreciate your comments. And any other comments from commissioners? From the chair's perspective, as I said earlier, fully empathize with the applicant's position, and also the applicants. I would assume when you came out and purchased this particular property, you were also out about and looked around a bit, so you are familiar with the property. Not to say that we happen to have prying eyes walking on the street at the same time. The way it's the new fence line proposed is really out in the sort of in the setback area of the front, and the how large the side yard issue is really not the issue, but really it's the height and the privacy that governs it. So my question to the applicant is there a spot from where the plan shows right now, if you were to step back, that you will be okay with pushing the fence back more towards your backyard? Is there a place where you may be happy with?
Thanks for asking that question. So ideal situation in our case is if the fence was actually towards the side yard, which was originally built. That's where the ideal situation. The reason is where the current fence is, which is 10 feet, my property actually goes down. So there is a gradient. So there is a steep gradient into that open lot. If you can imagine a little bit, it's like a ditch. So if you are standing on the side yard, there is a 10 feet or less than 10 feet of a flat, and then the property actually goes down and becomes that. So anything after 10 feet, and this is what I discussed with Ned and Lillian before as well, anything behind this 10 feet, I would not achieve any purpose of security or privacy because the privacy is, even if, as you correctly pointed, even if I bid 7th fill, they can see it because the height differential from that place to if I build a fence over there. So that's why we decided, okay, if we could move it 10 feet and have the same height, at least there is some protection because right now if I stand, I'm a 5'6" guy. If I stand there, I cannot see that trellis. So if somebody is taller than me, they have to make an extra effort to see through that. So it will look obvious if somebody is like a peeping Tom. If somebody is there, they have to make an absolute effort to look through it. And that's why we feel secured right now, the way the fence is.
Okay, thank you. And commissioners.
May I add one data point though, sir?
Please, who is speaking?
This is Sachin. This is applicant, Sachin speaking.
Applicant, please.
There was a discussion earlier about precedent. So I I don't know because we discussed so many data points. The 712 Wessex Plex, Milpitas, which is a similar lot as mine, exactly same shape, has built the fence exactly the way I have built today after the code enforcement applied, which is 10 foot back. So I just wanted to point that out that, you know, we have those pictures on the application as well. And we looked at that property before building the fence.
And also there is a height difference between that particular fence and your fence as well. So there's
I don't know the height of that Wessex Place, but it does look like at least 6 feet.
Okay, fair
I
enough.
may be wrong, but I haven't checked the height.
Okay, thank you. So commissioners, discussions or your pleasures? Anyone wants to make a motion?
I would like to make a motion.
Commissioner Blaza, please.
Could you put the last slide back on, please? So I can make the proper motion. Okay, here you are. All right. So I move to adopt resolution number 20-016, approving variance permit number VA 19-0003 and minor site development permit number MS 19-0144, subject to the findings and conditions of approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, and I'm sorry, the second's from Commissioner Abana. Is that
Obama,
correct?
yes, that's correct.
All right, and so we have a motion from Commissioner Blaza and a second from Commissioner Abana, and I'll go ahead and do a
Chair,
yes.
can I ask code enforcement one more question before we do the roll call vote?
Absolutely.
It'll be very quick. Don't worry.
I'm not worried.
So this question's for code enforcement. Is part of the process of the final inspection, will you be measuring around the fire hydrant, making sure it's clear? I mean, obviously, if it's clear, I can't see from pictures right now if the fire hydrant is 3 feet all around or not. Will that be part of the final inspection?
I'm pretty sure it's clear, but I will definitely check on that.
Thank you. That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maggi. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'll go ahead and take the vote. Vice Chair Alcorn?
Aye.
Commissioner Chua? Please unmute.
Aye.
Commissioner Chuan?
Aye.
Commissioner Blaza?
Aye.
Commissioner Belong?
Aye.
Commissioner Albana?
Aye.
And Chair, I'm sorry, go ahead. Someone was saying something? Okay, and Chair will actually abstain from this vote here because I think for the purpose of for the record, I absolutely feel for the applicant. The applicant was on site, and know that the site conditions, and the fence as it stands right now, this is we're going to have some potential future issues there. The visual aspect from the fence is not the issue. If the visual and also the obstruction wouldn't take place, planting is probably the biggest ally in that respect. So with that said, and the chairs disagree with some of the scenario. So Chair will go ahead and abstain this vote. Thank you. So the motion carries 6 ayes and with 1 abstain. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Van Wap. We appreciate you here this evening. And on to the next agenda item here, that's new business. This is a VMT vehicle miles traveled study session, and senior planners. Planning director, if you would.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So our final item tonight is under new business. Typically, most of the items that come before the Planning Commission are development projects. We also, from time to time, will bring ordinance amendments, or in this case, a policy item to the commission. And we recently embarked or initiated a new project to bring the city into compliance with state law. And we have tonight our new principal planner, Jay Lee, and also our project consultant, Karen Mack, here to provide you some of the details of the policy that they will be developing over the next several months. The policy is directly related to how we measure transportation impacts under CEQA. So there has been a recent change in state law, and many of the cities, all of the cities actually in the state of California, will be making this change and will be generating a local policy, and they'll describe to you what the letter VMT stands for as opposed to LOS. And this will become important as we look at future development projects and that require some type of CEQA analysis that's done. I believe this is Jay Lee's first presentation to the council. He was hired back in March. He came on board during the time that we've been away from City Hall. So he's been doing all of his work remotely. He's done a remarkable job. We're very glad to have him. He came to us from the city of Sunnyvale. And then Karen Mack, I worked with for a few years at the city of San Jose. She's well known around the South Bay and in Sacramento on this particular topic. She retired a few years ago from the city of San Jose and has been consulting with local jurisdictions on the project. And we're very fortunate to have her expertise in this area. But I'll turn the time over to them and they'll present to you vehicle miles traveled. I'll turn it over to Jay and to Karen.
I was muted. Good evening, commissioners. Nice to meet you all. Excited to be here to present about VMT. And I guess hopefully the presentation will come up soon. All right. So this is a bit of a technical item and it's a bit late right now. So we will try to make it as exciting as possible. So first, next slide, please. We will start by providing a brief background on this issue, and then next review the current method for analyzing transportation impacts under CEQA, which is level of service. So I will refer to that as LOS from now on. And next, we will discuss the new method of analysis, vehicle miles traveled, VMT, and how it applies to our city, to Milpitas. Then we will preview considerations for a citywide VMT policy, then share the schedule to develop and implement the citywide VMT policy. So this is just an introduction, but we welcome any early questions and feedback, which is why we are here before you today. Next slide, please. So per state law, agencies must use VMT now instead of LOS to analyze transportation impacts. We are working on a citywide VMT policy to comply with the updated CEQA guidelines and establish consistency in analysis for development projects. And as you are all aware, we are working on the general plan update. And as part of this effort, we will update our existing LOS policies from our previous general plan to comply with state law and provide new policies addressing VMT on a more general level. And this VMT policy will go into more detail. Of course, we are working on an update to the climate action plan, and we want to align with that effort as well, since both policies and efforts are intended to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Not on this page, but we are also working on the Metro Plan, which is an update to the Transit Area Specific Plan. We will work on the Midtown Specific Plan, updating it next year. So the VMT, will provide a great opportunity to support and facilitate growth in the areas that we want growth to happen, in the most suitable areas. Next slide, please. So why exactly are we developing this VMT policy? It's because of Senate Bill 743. The state passed Senate Bill 743 in 2013 to change the way transportation impacts are analyzed under CEQA. The intent was to promote multimodal transportation networks, transit-oriented development, and the reduction of greenhouse gases, which are all priorities of the state. SB 743 basically declares that LOS is no longer considered an impact under CEQA and establishes VMT as the new methodology for analyzing impacts. Then the state set a deadline of July 1st, 2020, so July 1st of this year, which just passed, for cities to transition from using LOS to VMT. So you guys are probably wondering what exactly is LOS and what is VMT? I'm going to pass the presentation off to Karen to go into more detail about what those methodologies are.
Thank you. Good evening, Commissioner Chair and fellow planning commissioners. I'm here to continue to talk about level of service and VMT. Next slide, please. The current, or up until July 1st, 2020, the current level of service methodology has been used for 50 years by most California cities to measure transportation environmental impacts since the adoption of CEQA in 1970. Level of service, or LOS, is typically measured at signalized intersections during weekdays and during both the AM and PM peak hour. Intersections are graded A through F to indicate the level of congestion, with A indicating little or no congestion and F indicating extreme congestion. Many of our expressway intersections in Santa Clara County operate at LOS E or F. LOS impact occurs when a project causes the level of service to degrade from D to E, or if an intersection is already functioning at E or F, a project increases the critical delay by 4 seconds. To mitigate an LOS impact, projects will often widen an intersection to increase the vehicle capacity to accommodate the project traffic. Today, both Milpitas General Plan and City Policy and the Santa Clara County Congestion Management Program still require evaluating LOS. Next slide, please. So what is VMT? VMT, or A vehicle miles traveled, is the distance in miles that a driver travels from point A to point B. This graphic is a popular YouTube video that was produced by Fair and Peers that does a good job of explaining VMT. So you can pull this up online if you're interested. The graphic shows how you can calculate VMT by multiplying the number of cars by the length of the trip. One vehicle traveling 1 mile generates 1 VMT. 4 vehicles traveling 10 miles generates 40 VMT. So how would we use this to measure a project's VMT? Measuring VMT for land uses and transportation projects requires an understanding of how far people are driving in their daily travel today. The state focused on residential employment projects because these two land uses generate much of the day-to-day traffic. To measure VMT in Milpitas, trips originating in Milpitas, ending in Milpitas, and traveling within Milpitas are added together to calculate the total VMT generated in Milpitas. By establishing the existing VMT conditions in Milpitas, we can use this information to estimate the VMT for new land development. For residential VMT, the total VMT is divided by the number of residents and results in VMT per capita. For employment projects, for employment VMT, the total VMT is divided by the number of jobs and results in a VMT measure per employee. Next slide, please. The proposed methodology would require the following. We would establish the average VMT in Milpitas for residents and employees. That would be our baselines, and we would need 2, one for residential and one for employment projects. We would establish the target VMT reduction, or the threshold that the projects would have to achieve. and this is as required and mandated by the state. We would then establish the existing VMT levels in Milpitas. Typically areas closer to transit have lower VMT, and areas with varieties of land uses also have lower VMT. From there, we would measure the VMT with a proposed project. So we would take the existing VMT of the area and add a project in. So how would that change VMT? Adding density of land uses, diversity of land uses, or projects closer to transit will lower VMT. Projects that cannot meet the target VMT would have a less than significant impact, and projects that cannot meet the target, sorry, did I say that incorrectly? Projects that can meet the target VMT would have a less than significant impact. Projects that cannot meet the target would have a significant impact and would require mitigation. So what is, next slide, please. So what is VMT mitigation? The intent is to reduce driving. So there are 4 types of mitigation, VMT mitigation measures. That is mitigation that is intended to lower the amount of driving. The first type is project attributes. As we discussed briefly earlier, very often the project attributes, either locations of density or diversity of land uses, will reduce the VMT to the threshold. However, if the project needs further mitigation, projects can go to the next level. Multimodal transportation improvements. These types of improvements that improve access to transit, bicycle, and pedestrian networks will typically lower VMT. The third level is parking strategies that include parking reductions and increased bike parking. Reducing parking, of course, can have unintended consequences, so we'll have to be sensitive to the existing conditions with the project development to determine the appropriateness of this mitigation. The fourth level is transportation demand management. TDM programs are especially successful for employment projects and can effectively reduce VMT. Examples of TDM mitigation measures include subsidized or free transit passes, employee shuttles, parking cash outs, telecommuting, and flex schedules. In order to illustrate VMT mitigation and reducing driving alone, there's many ways to do that, but I would always use an example of Santana Row. Not that it's the ideal project, but it's a project where you could live, work, recreate, dine, shop, exercise, all in one place without getting in and out of the car. That's kind of the strategy of VMT, to create other opportunities so people don't have to drive as far or have options to bike or walk. Next slide, please. Very quickly, this is a comparison of level of service to VMT. So level of service, LOS is the current method, VMT is the proposed method. LOS measures project vehicles at intersections. VMT measures total project vehicle miles generated. LOS is measured during the peak hour only. Vehicle miles traveled is measured all day. LOS focuses on automobile travel. VMT focuses on all travel. LOS facilitates driving. VMT facilitates all transportation options. LOS can increase vehicle capacity. Vehicle miles traveled improves pedestrian, bicycle, and transit access. LOS can encourage suburban development. Vehicle miles traveled encourages urban development. And lastly, LOS can increase greenhouse gas emissions. VMT aims to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, please. So these are the actual VMT miles that were measured by the VTA and provided to cities. These are the closest cities to Milpitas. This chart is the existing average VMT levels for various local cities. All of the cities are within Santa Clara County with the exception of Fremont, which is in Alameda County. So what do these numbers mean? So generally, this describes that Milpitas residents travel approximately 12.12 miles in their daily travel. This number represents each resident in a household and measures daily trips that occur between the home and other land uses like schools, shopping, and also includes employment. For example, residential per capita is measured by adding together the length of all the trips that originate from the residents and divided by the number of residents in a household. The lower the residential VMT, the more complete a community is because land uses are conveniently located. So let's switch to employment VMT. You can see it in highlighted, it's 17.54. Employees travel 17.54 miles on average to get to employment in Milpitas. Again, as a reminder, that is a measurement of people driving into Milpitas for employment, either within Milpitas or to Milpitas from outside of Milpitas. Typically, people will travel farther for their jobs, which is why the employment number is usually higher than the residential VMT. The numbers in Santa Clara County are fairly consistent. So next slide, please. So a little bit more about Milpitas's baseline VMT. What is the average that people are driving in Milpitas? The state allows you to define your baseline or what you're going to measure your projects against in different baseline options. We can define our baseline as either citywide average, countywide average, and regional average. The region is defined as the 9 Bay Area counties and includes Santa Clara, Alameda, San Francisco, San Mateo, Napa, Sonoma, Marin, Solano, and Contra Costa counties. The residential household VMT is consistent with Milpitas citywide average being the lowest and the regional average being the highest. So the first line is the residential VMT per capita. The average, if we measured it citywide, is 12.12. If we measured it countywide, in other words, took all the residents in the county and all the VMT, the average goes up 13.33. And then if we measure the region and divide it by the number of residents in the region, we would get 13.95. Same with the employment. The interesting thing, of course, is the employment is significantly higher. Milpitas's employment is higher than the regional average, which is very interesting. And then in the center is the countywide average. Why is this important? It's important because the threshold, so the CEQA threshold for transportation projects or the VMT reduction target will be set based on these baselines. That means that the estimated VMT for new developments will have to meet the VMT reduction target. Some areas of the city will very easily meet the threshold, and you can think of around the BART station, around the light rail stations. Some areas may not. Think of hillside development or areas closer to the freeway that don't have access to good transit. The technical evaluation will include evaluating these numbers to determine the best alignment with the land use and transportation goals in Milpitas and the location of the general plan growth areas. Next slide, please. And I think, Jay, are you going to take this one?
Yes.
Okay.
So, as you can see, that was a lot of information, but I think, the benefit that we have or I guess, yeah, the benefit that we have is that, other cities have adopted VMT policies, including San Francisco, Oakland, San Jose, Santa Clara, and Mountain View, and other cities. So we have a pretty good idea now of what the common concerns may be from the residents and from stakeholders. One of them is parking. As Karen mentioned earlier, one of the ways to reduce VMT is to not overpark developments or provide too much parking, so you can reduce the amount of parking in these developments, which may encourage people to drive less. But residents may be concerned about spillover parking into existing neighborhoods. So as Karen mentioned, we will thoughtfully consider and tailor any parking strategies to the existing context. Also, our goal is to reduce our dependence on cars. So in turn, that will hopefully reduce the need for more parking spaces. The other concern is a lack of transit ridership. Transit is a good alternative to driving, but ridership has been going down during the pandemic. However, I believe Milpitas, we're in a good position to take advantage of our strong transit systems with the new BAR station and existing VTA light rail and bus infrastructure. Communities have also expressed concerns that there will be less funding for roadway and traffic signal improvements, which LOS really focuses on. But transitioning to VMT doesn't preclude us from collecting traffic impact fees and requiring developers to still pay for their fair share of improvements. And last but not least, communities have also expressed concerns about how moving away from LOS may increase local traffic congestion. However, LOS is not going away. We will continue to use LOS outside of CEQA to address local traffic congestion. Next slide, please. So as we move forward with the policy, we will consider several things. As Karen mentioned, we first need to set the baseline or the existing VMT conditions, and then the threshold for what is considered a significant impact. How much do projects need to reduce the VMT of an area? Another consideration is aligning all our VMT policy with Milpitas's land use goals. So, general plan update envisions growth in certain areas. The specific plan, metro plan, and currently Midtown specific plan, those are maybe the focus areas, and we want our VMT policy to prioritize the areas where growth should go, namely near transit and in a more centralized area with more amenities. And another consideration is determining what the best type of mitigation is for development, especially for our city. Another consideration is identifying what types of projects do we want to exempt from VMT analysis to streamline the types of projects that will minimize environmental impacts and reduce the need for driving. For example, infill and transit-oriented development. Another consideration is determining how we will continue to use LOS in addition to VMT. And lastly, establishing new procedures for our CEQA documents, which we must do to implement the policy. Next slide, please. So for the timeline, the first big effort is technical evaluation, which we have already started. We are evaluating the existing conditions and our policies to see what type of policy would work best for us, and also align any efforts, align our VMT efforts with any land use plans that are going on. The next step, which will start soon, later this summer, or has started in some sense, is to create a webpage with FAQs to explain a complicated topic like this, to schedule meetings with decision makers such as this commission and also the city council, which we've already, they've seen it as a consent item, advisory bodies, meetings with staff and also developers, perhaps through the community development roundtable. And while engaging the public, we will acknowledge and address the potential growing pains and common concerns we discussed earlier, but we will continue to reiterate that this is something that we are required to do by the state, and also emphasize the many benefits that VMT offers, such as better access to destinations and reducing GHG, greenhouse gas emissions, and hopefully improving the overall quality of life. And once we get to the policy formation, hopefully in the fall, we will, try to get a policy that facilitates the type of development that we want to see and growth in suitable areas. And lastly, we will implement this policy first by getting it adopted by council, and then continuing to train staff and consultants to carry out the work that we need to do. So I know this is a bit complicated, but thank you for your time. And this concludes our presentation, but we're available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Through the chair, you're muted.
Apologies. Thank you very much for the notation. I think I'm having technical difficulties. Got kicked off the Zoom meeting, and trying to find my way back on was an interesting VMT exercise here just now. So
I think that's called user error.
I'll take that under advisement with the. I think the city attorney will probably send you a letter tomorrow on that. Thank you, Vice Chair. And so thank you very much. And I'd like to note, since this is a new business item, and any commissioners have comments.
I have one comment really quick.
Vice Chair?
No questions. I just wanted to say that was a amazing presentation, very informative. You know, we briefly went over this when we met, and I did have a couple questions, more clarifications, but you answered them all in your presentation, just like I thought you would. So thank you. It was very good. Keep up the good work.
And thank you, Vice Chair and commissioners.
Mr. Chair Tao, I have some questions.
Absolutely, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Okay, just correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Oh, welcome, by the way, Mr.
Lee.
Yeah, welcome to Planning Commission.
Thank you.
This is your first meeting, right?
Yes.
Oh, and you're still here? Okay, that's a good sign. Anyway, okay. So there is, when I read the document, why is it that it will encourage, there is an unintended consequence of VMT to encouraging more rural development? How is that possible?
So if I may take a stab at it, I think to clarify, level of service encourages suburban development because anything that takes a busy street, a project that results in a busy intersection that kind of drops to a worse level from, let's say, to E or F,
Right.
that is considered a significant impact. So projects are incentivized under LOS to move away from busy areas, to go more into the suburban and rural undeveloped areas where the LOS is probably an A or a B, whereas VMT shifts away from that and encourages development, even if it is a busy area, but it encourages development in existing development, infill development, and to try to minimize spreading out all the land uses and kind of directing more of the units and the development in areas that are already busy, that have the amenities, commercial, retail, and all the other amenities and jobs, so that when you locate all these uses together, people won't be driving as much. So VMT does encourage urban development, not everywhere, but in the areas where urban development should be. And then it'll actually potentially, like if you were to develop in a rural area, like a huge project that, that may induce a lot of driving, then, that actually will be considered a significant impact. So it kind of maintains maybe some of the less busy areas as less busy, and then the busier areas as remaining urban in character. Karen, if you can add to that, please.
No, I think that was perfect.
In previous developments, we're always presented with the A through F categories, and they were based on data that were done like 10 years ago, and those data were not even in our city. Those data could be consolidation of information, of data analysis from other cities based on LOS. Because we never have the VMT, but now we have that. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I like this one because it's really city driven. It's our own data. It's not somebody else's data. That's what am I correct in assuming that?
You are. So the process for measuring level of service is typically the CMP, Congestion Management Program, that oversees Santa Clara County, requires cities to collect data, and typically intersection level of service, the base, the existing traffic count, should be 2 years or newer. But there are instances where the data gets a little bit older. If you have construction projects or things like that, then it's not a good time to collect data. And so sometimes we miss a cycle. But it is ideally supposed to be 2 years old. The data itself can come from a Milpitas consultant. It could come from Santa Clara County. It could come from another city. So you are correct in that when you'd establish your baseline for Milpitas, this is based on the residents. That it's a very I don't want to say stagnant, but it's a very stable baseline because it's based on the number of residents and the number of employees within Milpitas. And that's a number that's pretty consistent.
Okay. On one of your slides, can you expound on I like it has something to do with the VMT mitigation. If the VMT is high and you want to reduce driving, and one of your recommendations is TDM. Can you expound a little bit on that, please?
Sure. TDM, we use it for a lot of times for greenhouse gas emission strategies. We also use it for some projects, especially employment projects. Usually for employment projects, especially ones that are not spec buildings. TDM measures the owner, occupier, the big companies. They are very pro TDM. And so TDM, it really provides an incentive for a company to get their employees out of their cars and into transit or into shuttles, because even a shuttle, the large buses that you see, or a smaller bus, it's preferable to driving alone. So those are some of the TDM measures. There's parking cash outs. There's larger bike parking. There's bike amenities where you have good lockers for secure lockers. There's transit passes, very effective for an employer to provide some sort of subsidy for people taking BART or taking that would take the light rail. And then there's telecommuting, which very recently is probably one of the most popular TDM reduction strategies. And I think that's a very effective TDM or VMT reduction method.
And if I may add, TDM programs are often coupled with parking reductions. So we wouldn't be reducing parking just for the sake of parking, but it will be tied to efforts to minimize the amount of driving that will happen. So those will work in tandem. And we do not currently have a citywide TDM policy, although we always work with our developers to try to implement TDM measures. But part of this policy could also be to think about a citywide ordinance that would establish some consistency for how we come up with these, transportation demand measures and a program really for maybe larger projects or certain types of projects in the city.
My last question is, you said LOS is not going away. Instead, it's going to be merged. How would you marry LOS with VMT successfully? How do you see that happening?
So most of the cities, with the exception of San Francisco, are keeping some form of level of service. It is very important for cities to make sure that their transportation network continually is monitored and invested in, because everybody's going to use the road, whether they're walking or biking or in the vehicle or in a bus. And so for that reason, developments could continue to measure level of service. The level of service analysis would no longer be a CEQA level of service. It would be an operational level of service analysis. The intent would be the same, is to ensure that there's still investment and a certain levels of service are maintained within Milpitas.
What do you mean operational versus CEQA level of service?
So today, or up until July 1st, when land use plans measured their environmental impact, as part of their environmental review, they used the level of service analysis to determine whether they had a significant environmental impact by adding a certain amount of congestion to signalized intersections. So the state said you can no longer do that. That is not an environmental impact because it increases GHG, it increases driving. So it is no longer, or will no longer be, an environmental impact. However, we can look at it and see we're still adding cars to our intersections, and so we can still measure whether the added amount of cars will require more left turn storage, more right turn storage, or perhaps changing a phasing to allow for a protected left turn or even pedestrian upgrades. So that would be ideal, is that we would continue to monitor how our intersections function and then continually to improve them to respond to added project vehicles.
Well, since the implementation drop dead date is July 1st, 2020, what are you going to do with developments that are coming up? Are you going to use the VMT, or are you going to stick with the LOS when they come to planning?
We have to use VMT. July 1st was the deadline to no longer use level of service. So for our CEQA documents, we cannot use LOS. We will use VMT. And then we will probably have an interim policy that would evaluate the projects that are in the pipeline or in process right now until we get to the final policy in December. And the state's guideline acknowledges and allows for that. It says if you don't have a policy, you can do qualitative analysis. You don't have to have your policy adopted. They're giving us time to create it.
Thank you. Thank you both, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner. And
I just add one. Sorry,
Director, please.
Sorry, through the chair. So just adding on to what Karen just said. So for example, just today we met to talk about a project that's making its way through the process, and it will need to come to the Planning Commission and to the Council before we get the policy adopted. So we met today to talk about what type of a VMT analysis we could do, and we will continue working with the CEQA consultant to develop some qualitative analysis for that site, and so that the projects can continue to move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a question for either Jay or Karen. The VMT numbers that was on the slides, how are those numbers arrived? Because it's got to be measured from somewhere to somewhere, and a lot of assumptions made accordingly.
That's a great question. The numbers come from the MTC. They have a master model of the state of California. And that MTC model is populated, or the data that goes into it is census data, California Household Survey, information provided by cities, and so in our case, when we do traffic analysis using these big travel demand models, the VTA will asked the MTC for the piece of the model that represents Santa Clara County and our region. So they'll migrate that into their own travel demand model. And so using the MTC and all of that data, they will provide the estimation of how people are driving and where they're going. To add to that, to get those numbers that you looked at today, Milpitas staff, during the process of working with the VTA's working group to establish the numbers, the VTA staff provided updated information on number of residents and number of jobs in Milpitas. So they put all that together and came out with the numbers using the travel demand model.
So I would assume our mass transit traffic routes, bus routes or the light rail routes were designed with a lot of these data has been integrated function, over the years, right?
Right.
So can I just ask an unpopular question on the VTAs and the bus routes? Even before the pandemic, it was the old see-through process and see-through cabins. Is there fallacies there that we're measuring something that's not quite there?
That data that you were looking at today is existing conditions based on data. So it's not a projection of how people traveling. It's how they're traveling today. So the high VMT numbers indicates that we don't have a lot of mode shift. And I think the percentage is on average about 5%. Downtown San Jose has the best mode shift in Santa Clara County, and they're estimating about less than 30% are not driving. So still over 70% of residents and employees are traveling by car in the most urban area in Santa Clara County. So the VTA provided ridership numbers also in calculating these VMTs. So unfortunately, our numbers are pretty low. Honestly, there's some better areas. Milpitas has some good numbers. Mountain View has some good numbers, but overall, it's fairly low.
Well, I guess I'm just looking at our public transit system and wondering how's the money spent and where the data come from this. Okay, well, thank you very much. Commissioners, any other comments? Well, seeing none, let's go ahead and close off the new business, and I'll go into the verbiage. Any person aggrieved by any decision of any board, commission, or department head to the city of Milpitas may appeal the decision to the city council by filing written notice of the appeal with the city clerk within 12 calendar days of the date of said decision and paying the required fee. This time limit shall be strictly enforced. The next agenda item is adjournment.
Chair, do you mind? Can I make one quick clarification before we adjourn?
Absolutely.
Just regarding Commissioner Chuan's question at the beginning of the meeting regarding training. So I just want to clarify that commissioners must receive at least 2 hours of training, ethics training every 2 years, and then any new or any newly elected appointed commissioner must receive the ethics training within 1 year of taking oath of office.
Thank you, City Attorney. We appreciate it.
Really quick on that. Can either Ned or Martin or Jessica follow up with me and make sure I'm up to date?
Okay. Yeah.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, thank you very much. And
Sure, Tao.
We're not going to get to adjournment, are we?
No, wait, just a quick question. I want to make sure. Will there be an email for us to be able to Zoom in tomorrow?
There was an email from the technical staff.
Oh, there was? Okay, I'll check it.
I think one came from Jessica this afternoon, so look for that one.
Thank you.
In fact, sorry, we'll get to adjournment. Ned, through the chair, I'll just ask this of you. If any of the commissioners here are not up to date on their training, would you guys just be able to let them know and work with them to make sure everyone's up to date, including myself in the chair?
Yes, I'll coordinate with Liz. Jessica and I will coordinate with Liz, and we'll send out something to everybody to let you know what your status is.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And so we're officially moving into the next agenda item of adjournment. And so do I have a motion?
Chair, one more thing. I'll make a motion to adjourn. I got you.
I second.
I would like to know where you live at this point in time. Thank you. And then
second.
Second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, meeting officially adjourned. And thank you, everyone.
Aye.
Stay safe and have a nice evening.